Hey guys, my name's Keyan Houshmand, and in today's video we're going to be checking out this brand new guitar from 10S Guitars. Let's have a look. So if you follow me on Instagram, you definitely would have seen this already, and if you're a Patreon member, you definitely would have heard it already. This is the 10S Guitars Spring BH in the crackle finish. The guys at 10S Guitars got in contact with me and asked me if I would like to review this guitar, which I was obviously going to say yes, and they sent it to me, came in the mail the other day, and I haven't stopped playing it since I got it. With that being said, there's a disclaimer that I have no obligation to say anything good about this guitar, even though I really like it. If you guys like this video at any time, definitely leave a like, and if you want to see more stuff like this, definitely subscribe. If you guys want tabs, stems, and DRs for the demo song you're about to hear, as well as other exclusive content and supporting me and my channel, definitely check out the Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description. But enough fussing about how does it sound in a mix. So what I'll do now is I'll go through the specs of this guitar, as well as talk about my overall feel with the guitar and the general experience that I've had with it thus far. So starting off, you get locking tuners, which is really nice. Even though they're just like non-branded 10S Guitar branded locking tuners, they're still nice and they do the job. Graphtec nut, which is a really nice touch. 24 nickel frets, just normal white side dots, no lumen lays. Hard maple neck, rosewood fingerboard with a little bit of gloss on it, it looks like. Tesla branded pickups, standard black dome knobs, and a three-way pickup selector, as well as a trem bar, which is a brass trem inside. 26.25 scale length, which is a little bit longer than the normal 25.5 that you find on maybe like a Fender or an Ibanez or something like that, which does allow you to drop a little bit lower and still maintain that tension on the same gauge of strings. The reason why it's 26.25 is that when you convert that to millimeters, it's 666 millimeters, so very metal. It is a mahogany body. On the back, as you can see, it's a bolt-on configuration, which is really nice for this style of music. And last but not least, this finish. Now, when I saw this finish first off in the photos that they showed me, I honestly didn't like it that much, but now having it in person, it is definitely eye-catching, that's for sure. I've scanned this guitar up and down around the body trying to find a single blemish or a smudge in the paint job, and I could not find anything, so it's a really nice finished guitar. It's obviously a very loud design. If you guys love this design, that's great. If you don't like it, these guys offer any paint job you want pretty much with their custom shop, as well as being able to find other models of this same guitar and just general colors and stuff like that. So now just going on to the feel of this guitar. Now, straight off the bat, it feels nice to play. Like, everything is where you expect it to be. Your hand rests nicely on the bridge. There's no like digging into your palm or anything. The neck is, they call it a modern slim C shape, which I can kind of agree with. It's not wizard thin like an Ibanez. It's got something to it that you can grab on, but it's not obtrusive in any way. It's kind of like my Jackson, to be honest. I find it very comparable to my Jackson. So with me doing the setup myself, I have put way heavier gauges of strings on this. I've put like 12 to 62, I think it is, from String Source, the Amber set from String Source, which they were also kind enough to send me a free sample of their strings. If you're watching this, thank you. I am using their strings on this in drop B, and I have it set up so that I can still like do my little flutters and stuff like that, and I can kind of dive down a little bit. But again, this setup was done by me. I'm not a professional guitar tech, so there are going to be some like tuning stability issues that I'll talk about later that would ultimately be affected by my setup. So I'm going to give it a bit of a leeway. But all in all, I've got the action kind of where I want it. I've set up the intonation, I've set up the bridge the way I'd want it with the flutters and everything. So there's only so much I can do right now, but it still feels great to play. Because it's been so long since I've had a proper experience with a trem guitar, I did forget that the back of the springs, like in the cavity and stuff, are really resonant. So the only mod that I've done to this guitar for the time being is putting some foam back there just to kind of kill any resonance coming from those. But apart from that, it's pretty much stock. The body shape is fine, it has really nice cuts so you can have easy access to the 24th fret, as well as having a little bit of a tummy cut on the back here. Fretwork is really nice, there's no sharp edges, as you can see I can go up and down all day, and there's no short frets or anything, they all end perfectly at the end of the fretboard. So yeah, really good job on the frets actually, I was really surprised with that, being that this is a really cheap guitar. The knobs came out factory nice and stiff, they weren't loose or anything, which is nice, and the three-way selector is really nice and clicky, as you can probably hear. It's not kind of like floating to one section, you can really click it into the sections, which is really nice. The body shape, if you couldn't tell already, well this is what I think anyway, is heavily inspired by the John Petrucci signature model with a little bit of PRS influence. Like I feel like if you made this straight at the bottom or more rounded and made that less pointy, it would look very much like a PRS. But I have no complaints with the body shape, it feels really nice to hold, really nice to play, and doesn't fight you in any way at all. So keeping in mind that this is like a 550 US, maybe like $750, $800 Australian guitar, it is fairly cheap. Like you'd be hard pressed to find these features on other guitars, like the Graphtec nut and the locking tuners and a little bit of a longer scale length. All that stuff you'd be very hard pressed to find on a guitar in this price point, with the brass trem and everything. Like it's a nice guitar. When it's this cheap, however, you start to wonder if there's any cosmetic issues with the guitar, which is very common in guitars in this price point from other brands, given that they're made overseas and stuff like that. But really, the only problems that I could find with this one cosmetically that don't affect the playability is just like 2 little scratches on the fretboard, and that's it. And everything else is pretty much bang on. The routing is nice, like when I took out the trem cover and like put the foam in there and like adjusted everything, it was nice and clean, nice and smooth, there was no like rough edges or anything. All the bolts on the back are nice and recessed, there's no paint job issues around that. The neck pocket is really tight, and there's no like paint drippage or anything on the edges of the neck pocket. Like it's really nice. The bridge, if you lift it up, you can see that it's fairly clean in there as well, there's no like rough edges or anything. So overall, like in terms of appointments around the guitar and the routing and stuff like that, it does feel way better than its price point. The truss rod cover, I have it here. I've taken it off though because I was adjusting it over the past couple of days. It does have like a little bit of dry glue in it, but like the actual routing of it and like the paint job inside of it and stuff is really smooth. It's just a little bit of dry glue. But if you had that covered up anyway, you'd never see it. I took it off because I just don't like having it now. I like having quick, easy access to the truss rod. Another thing, maybe like the nut is like a little bit too short on either side. Like if you rub your thumb against it hard, you can kind of feel the fretboard. But like again, unless your thumb's never up there anyway, like you're never going to notice that stuff, and that's being really nitpicky on an instrument in this price range, which is really cheap. Maybe if this was like a $3,000 guitar, like then I'd be a little bit annoyed, but honestly, like when you're paying like $750, $800 for a guitar with these specs, little things like that that shouldn't really affect the way you play or anything, shouldn't matter at all. Like those issues, there are so many worse issues that I've seen on other guitars in this price point made in other countries, especially Chinese made guitars, but this is a really nice Chinese made guitar. Now the pickups, I know what you're probably thinking, these are just like Tesla branded pickups, they're not a very well-known company, you probably wouldn't expect the most of them, but when I plugged this in for the first time, I was actually really surprised with the tones I could get with it. I'll do a little playthrough later with a couple other tones, but just to talk about the pickups generally, it does have that like 2K bite. It's very high gain, very high output pickup, and you do feel it when you play. I did adjust them a little bit, I put the bridge one just a little bit higher, just so I got a little bit more bite out of it, but in terms of like clarity and stuff like that, they're fine. Like there's nothing wrong with these pickups. Of course, if you want to swap them out, that's fine, you can swap them out, but for the time being, like I'm pretty happy with these pickups and I probably wouldn't change them out. However, the one thing I don't like about the pickups is actually nothing to do with the way they sound or anything. It's just the pickup rings around it. I just don't like pickup rings that much. It's really subjective, so it shouldn't really matter in terms of the overall review. I just wish there wasn't pickup rings. I feel like without pickup rings, if they were just direct mounted to the wood, it would fit the style of the guitar so much better. But again, like that's nothing to really worry about. That's just something I don't really like personally. But again, if you look at everything else on the guitar, like the locking tuners, Graphtec nut, the longer scale, pretty decent pickups to be honest, like brass tremolo, like all this stuff for like 550 American or something is really good. And that's just working in conjunction with like the really nice routing, like the neck pocket being really super tight, like the knobs feeling nice. Like you might have saw my other Jackson Misha Mansour review, the Pro Series model, like the knobs were loose and stuff, and like the nut wasn't even glued on properly, but like everything here is fine, like there's nothing wrong with it. Like the knobs are fairly tight, like the pickup switch is really nice, like nothing's loose or anything like that. All the pickup routing is smooth, all the routing in general is smooth, like you'd be really hard pressed to find this stuff on a guitar in this price point. Despite my overall enjoyment of the guitar, I did have one little hardware issue that the 10S guys do know about, and I did get in contact with them about it. But basically this trem bar here, as you can see, it's kind of like in a pressure locking system, kind of like a PRS bridge if I'm not mistaken. So the bridge here has like a tiny little pinhole that you put a truss rod through and you tighten it, and what it does is it tightens the pressure of the trem bar so that it's a little bit hard to take out now that I've tightened it. But the more you tighten it, the tighter it is in that hole. But basically what happened was that when this guitar was shipped to me, for whatever reason, it could be like a QC issue or they just generally forgot, or maybe it's just been sitting in the back for a little while. The actual grub that goes inside of that hole was missing, so the little screw that the truss rod latches onto wasn't in there, and it didn't come in the box. So I did get into contact with 10S Guitars about it, and they were more than happy to just send me the part and everything I needed and stuff like that if there was anything missing, as it would be with any customer. I'm guessing like if it's on their part, they'll do anything they can to fix it, which is a really, really nice sign. But being that I had to put this video out, I just went to my guitar tech and he had like a whole box of grubs and he just quickly put one in there and tightened it. Again, not really a big deal if you have access to that, but it's just one little issue I had. So yeah, all in all, I'm actually really, really enjoying this guitar. It's my drop B machine, and if I ever need to record a solo with a trem, I'll just do it with this one now because it's like the only trem guitar I have. But yeah, I really, really enjoy this. The only thing that I would change, again, which is completely subjective and completely aesthetic, which does not affect playability, is just the pickup rings around it, because I feel like it would match the whole guitar a little bit more. But apart from that, that's pretty much it. So now that we've talked about the specs and the feel, I'm just going to go through a couple different sound clips, going through a couple different tones, just so you guys can hear what this guitar sounds like isolated rather than in the mix. And that's it. So if you guys like this video at any time, please feel free to leave a like and a comment on anything you saw or heard. And if you want to see more of this stuff, definitely subscribe. So yeah, overall thoughts on the guitar, I really, really enjoy it. Again, like I said before, this is going to be my drop B machine. And if I ever need to record a solo with a trem system in it, I'll be using this one. Apart from those very minor cosmetic things that I mentioned before, as well as that little hiccup with the trem bar, which they were more than happy to fix anyway, there's nothing that I can really find about this guitar to fault. Again, massive thank you to the guys at 10S Guitars for sending me this through. I'm really, really grateful and I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really happy that I get to do a review on this so you guys can get a sense of what their guitars are like, and maybe they're in your price range and you want to try one out. It's probably worth mentioning that the guys at 10S Guitars do offer a custom guitar service, so you can have pretty much any spec you want and they'll be able to do it for you at a pretty low price, to be honest. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to their website. Massive thank you to all my Patreon members. Without you guys, I would definitely not be in this position to give you reviews like this. Thank you for your support. I really, really appreciate it. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao.